told you this wouldn't take long, didn't I? Oh, I did. Remember? We told you that way back in early December. This is because simply when you're working with people, particularly micro celebrities, what happens is you find out that it's never ever their fault. It's always somebody else's fault. More convenient that way, you know? It's always about the bottom line of, well, you know, I just allowed it to happen. I'm not quite sure how it ended up like this. As ever, who are we talking about? Hi, good morning, Neil Sean here. Nice to see you. And as ever, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you also for your lovely comments about, yes, the brilliant Royal and the Gangster. I really enjoyed that George Raft story because it just says it all about celebrities, doesn't it? The minute they sniff an opportunity, even way back then. And I'm a big fan of George Raft. I think his movies are great. Whenever you see one of his, you always think this will be a good story. And as I say, if you haven't seen Escape Route from 1952, a brilliant film, very engaging, and love looking at sort of London as well. It was filmed obviously a few years after the war, so there are all the sites that look slightly bombed out and how it's now being redeveloped. Incredible when you just look at it, if you get an opportunity. Back as ever though to your breaking ball story of the day. You see, as I said in the intro, it's fascinating, I find, with these people because it's never their fault when things happen, you see. And now when you want to shift the blame on something, particularly if you're Harry and Meghan, it's quite easy. We saw that recently, didn't we, Prince Harry, when he said, you know, we never called the royal family racist. And you think, well, I'm sure you did, but you know, it wasn't to be, was it? No, 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 not their fault. They just rewrite their own story. It's their history, not yours. You get the picture. It's interesting to note here also, when you think about it, that with Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, if you remember, they had a few wobbles putting together that documentary series because there were a few people assigned to making that series. And then it all went a little bit, shall we say, pear-shaped, for want of a better word. And then they brought in the alleged esteemed director, Liz Garbus, who then was, you know, kind of like blasted for using fake pictures within the documentary, things lifted from other stuff. So, you know, clearly it was a rush job and she was trying to get through it, like we all were in the end. But what's interesting here, you see now, is according to a very good source, and as ever, we have to say allegedly, both Meghan and Harry are basically claiming that it wasn't necessarily their vision. We had the highlight of this when Meghan sat down with the very much esteemed organ of entertainment, Variety. Do you remember she very casually in that interview said, you know, that she'd handed over their story to someone else and it's their lens that they're looking through. Basically, if you don't like it or you try to blame me, then it's her fault, not mine. You get the picture. But what's interesting here is now this is escalating because obviously as they realise the damage that that docuseries has done, not necessarily Prince Harry, but more Meghan Markle, they realise that they need to realign that story. Now, put it back, you know, perhaps say they would have done things differently, but they had to hand that over to the streaming giant Netflix. Of course, the wise amongst us know this particular old chestnut that comes around time and time again whenever the shift of blame has to be apportioned to someone. But right now, this is not going to play down incredibly well, is it, with their bosses out at Netflix? Because whatever way you look at it, it was a big success for them. They made a lot of money from that, as did Harry and Meghan. Not really covering their costs, but certainly a swell to the coffers in this much needed cost of living crisis. So how will they get out with a line in the next episode of what they're planning next, which we are told is going to be that finally Invictus Games special? Will Meghan like that, or will that be through someone else's lens again, if they've included interviews that she apparently in future doesn't like the look or indeed sound of? As ever, it's a developing story. When I know more, you'll know more. Neil Sean in the very heart of London.